Welcome again to the Mango Monkey Show, where we talk about personal finance, investing, and building wealth. Today I will be talking about where the location matters when you purchase a property. I was recently walking around Chatswood, a suburb 10 kilometers of the Sydney CBD, where I grew up. You have heard it many times, location, location, location. You need to buy in the best location to achieve the maximum growth potential. But does it really matter? How do you know which location is good value? Do you go to a fortune teller? Do you go to the church? Do you ask a property expert? What do I do? It's very confusing. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you are in luck. Because in this video, I will tell you that it does not matter what location you buy, as long as you make some sensible adjustments and exercise sensible cautions, you are likely to make money over the long term. It may take 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, but it doesn't matter, you will make money eventually. Property is an appreciating asset. What that means is that over the long term, the value will go up. You purchase it low, you sell it high, and you make money. If you go to realestate.com.au/neighborhoods, you'll be able to see the growth rates of different properties in different suburbs across Australia. You can see the trend either by monthly or by yearly. I'm going to show you the yearly trend of a couple of suburbs in New South Wales over the last 5 years. Do I buy a house or an apartment? It doesn't matter. Yes, a house has more land, it tends to go up a bit more in value, but on the other hand, the rental income will be a bit smaller. If you add up the two of them, you'll get roughly the same figure. Do I buy in Chatswood or in Bondi? It doesn't matter. Either of them will do you well over the long term. If you do not believe me, look at the screen. They both go up in value. Now, of course, in a particular year, some locations may do better than others. Some locations may go up 10% or 20%, whereas another one may go up only 5% or even go down 5%. But it may be the other way around next year. Either way, if you have an ongoing income to pay off your mortgage repayments every month, you have nothing to worry about. You can just hold on to the property for a few years until the property value goes up again and you make money when you sell it. When I bought my first property, I was trying to find the perfect property. I spent more than a month looking at different properties, went to a few different inspections on the weekends, every single weekend, and in the end I got sick of it. I looked at multiple websites, even created a spreadsheet, blah blah blah. It became almost like a job. I ended up buying in DY, which is a suburb that I actually did not know before. It was really random. Now guess what happened 7 years later? I sold this property for a price that gives me 4% annual return and 17% annual return if I only look at the deposit that I put in. So my advice to you is to take the plunge and buy your first home at the earliest possible opportunity, ASAP. Because you know that if your salary is enough to pay the mortgage repayments, you will do well over the long term. The majority of property investors do not invest in the share market. But if you do, you will know someone called Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett said that the majority of fund managers cannot beat the market performance. Now, these fund managers are really smart people. They did a degree in finance. They spend full time, 8 hours a day or even more, every single day to research various companies. Now, if all these smart people that spend full-time hours researching companies cannot beat the market, then what's the likelihood that you, who only spend a few hours in research, can beat the market? So if we translate that to property investing, I would say the same logic applies. If the full-time property researchers cannot beat the average market performance, what makes you think that you can find the best deal that other people cannot find? Except if you have a little bit of luck. Remember, nobody is perfect and the property you buy is not perfect. It's impossible for the property to be perfect. Now, of course, there are sensible things you can do to minimize your downside risks. So for the sake of completeness, I will mention a few of them to you. Now, this is just to make sure that you do not buy any random thing that comes to you, but I do not want you to get too hung up on it. If you find yourself always looking, maybe for 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, it's a sign from God that you need to buy something now. But anyway, here we go. Tip number 1. Tip number 1 is to buy in a metropolitan location with a large population. If the location has a large population, that means there is a lot of demand for the property. When you need to sell the property, you are able to sell to a large number of people. So even if one person cannot buy or does not want to buy your property, there is another person who is likely to be able to buy or to want to buy your property. Tip number 2 is to choose a suburb that has a diversified range of employers. This means if one particular type of employment is not in demand anymore, for example, if the hospitality industry goes bust due to the coronavirus pandemic, there is still the manufacturing industry in that location. Therefore, the person who wants to buy your property can be from the manufacturing industry, and he or she may still have a good job with good income and able to obtain a home loan to purchase your property. Tip number 3 is to buy the worst house on the best street. This opens up the opportunity for you to renovate the house later on, just before you sell, to increase the value of the house. Tip number 4 is to buy a house or a townhouse that has a bigger land component compared to an apartment in a high-rise building. The reason is that land tends to go up in value. On the other hand, the building, the apartment, tends to go down in value and depreciate, because the building gets old and less people want to buy an old building. Now this tip is only applicable if you are actually able to afford a house. If you don't worry, just buy an apartment. It's better to buy something rather than nothing. Tip number 5 is to buy near something good. It can be a school, can be a train station, a bus stop, a park, a beach, a shopping center. But do not be too picky. You do not need all of the above to obtain a good property. What you need to do is to buy your first property at the earliest possible opportunity. That way you get the bank to work for you and you get time to work for you through the power of compounding and the power of leverage. The power of leverage and compounding are very powerful. Now tip number 6, which is the final one for today, is to avoid highway and noisy locations. Because not only is it noisy when you open the window, it also creates pollution. Now I have given you 6 tips, however these tips are not too important. No matter what you buy, if you buy in a metropolitan location, you should be okay over the long term. What you need to make sure of is that you are able to make the monthly mortgage repayments and that you are never forced to sell the property. If it is an investment property, make sure you factor in the potential vacancies and rental discount. I have at least 6 months of my living expenses and mortgage repayments in cash so that I can get my shit in order before I am forced to sell. I also make sure that my debt load is no more than double my net wealth and probably lower the more wealth I obtain. If you found this video helpful, please drop me a like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.